Welcome back and welcome to the One More K podcast, episode number 46. We are on the roll here. Good day from California. Good evening this time in Bali. Hello, Ned.
Well, hello. I realized you're in California and I'm in Balifornia. Let's go with that.
I'm not sure I get this reference, but sounds good. Okay. And good afternoon, good evening soon, Michael Brechtelsbauer in Germany.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Nice to be on your show. And regards from northern Bavaria, very warm, mild fall.
Mm,
So not your temperatures, but still very decent.
nice. I'm glad my home country is doing fine and has good weather. You are the Chief Sales
Mm.
and Marketing Officer at LEKI and also the member of the board. LEKI, many of us don't need introduction, is of course a key brand in this amazing outdoor sports and trail running industry. You are very
Mm.
famous for your poles, which I've used also for many years, getting me up and down the mountains. But before we go to LEKI, I thought let's start with you because you also have some kind of exciting background, having been in sports for a long time. You look like a sporty person yourself. What is your sports story, Michael?
I need to admit I'm not an ultra runner. I'm a lunch runner. I consider myself more of a fanboy in the ultra running world than an ultra runner by myself. Like I'm a child of the sporting goods industry. I'm talking to you from Herzogenaurach, so my wife is still working for Adidas. Puma is next door. I've always been in the industry. I've been with Saleva, Intersport, LEKI. Yeah, my sports background was always I was jumping from sport to sport. Like I'm a real generalist as a sports person, but also as a business guy. The good thing is at LEKI, I discovered consistency. I'm with LEKI now since 8 years. So that's my ultra run now to keep on track. Really love the brand, love the company, very dedicated about this really precious German company and stopped changing the subject, the sport, the activity, and really I'm very happy to be with this company and to guide the trail running path through the industry, through the athlete world. That's my role, my story.
Nice. So is it fair to
Mhm.
say you are the driving force in LEKI for anything trail running?
It's a team effort. It's really a team effort. They're so good engineering, there's so good product management, marketing. There are so many people helping to make this work. I see my role more as like a protector of this still niche activity category, especially in the beginning, like when we started to embrace it 6, 7 years ago, it needed protection. It was a small plant, and I think that's you described my role, but I'm on this podcast not because of my title, but because I'm the protector of this small little plant that has grown to a really nice tree over the last years, and now we can really harvest the fruits. But it's not how it started, and everything starts small.
Let's go back to 1948. I believe that's when we'll go back in time a bit, but I think it's a cool story of how the Lenhardt family started LEKI. So, and I do think in this very, I would believe, modern age, new age sport of trail running,
Hmm.
there are some brands which are very new, including my own. And
Mm.
there's some brands are very traditional and very old, so who have taken the turn into trail running. So I'm very
Hmm.
curious this case to hear maybe Leki's story from the beginnings to now. I mean, of course, not all of it, but the key points to really understand how this, in German we say Mittelstand, this family business came about and then
Mm.
decided, hey, let's look into this thing called trail running because my parents used Leki in the 70s when they were hiking in the mountains. So it's nothing new. And then suddenly you see the brand popping up in trail running. It's like, oh, it's a bit like Jägermeister, which used to be this old drink for grandmas and suddenly becomes
Mm.
this party drink, right? So what about Leki?
So in a nutshell, we just had our 75 years celebration. So I digged a little bit into the history to put it down in written. And it started with a plane maker from Czech Republic, Bohemia. And this young man, Karl Leonhardt, was a refugee after World War II. So he was moved to Guard area, Kirchheim, where we are located now. And he was in his early 20s. And his first night he spent in a hangar for gliders. And
Okay.
guess what? He was a plane builder, so he made friends at the spot, basically, because all the pilots wanted to talk to him. And years later, when he had his company founded, he called it LEKI, Leonhard Kirchheim. So this guy fully embraced his new home. He was not looking back. He was looking looking forward. And it started with, he was an engineer, a plane builder. So actually we started with cutting door signs, cutting, restaurant signs. Like it was machinery basically. And it took until the late 50s when he started to develop ski pole components, grips, baskets. So the first innovation was actually a replaceable basket because the leather baskets were falling off. The leather was just wear and tear and falling off, and he was annoyed by this, and he developed a screwing system which is still in place. The LEKI fix we still have, not in trail running, but in skiing we still have it around. And in the 60s he started to make full poles and shafts. He went to the mountains. He had a friend in Reute in Tyrolia, a mountain guide, so he went there also in summer, and then this built up as a brand for skiing poles and then for trekking poles. I think the one cornerstone, one milestone was Messner and Habeler's peak climb to Everest in 78, and they were close to the Leonhards, and they were always complaining about the fixed length poles. You have a 1.20 meter pole, and that's not very nice if you climb, if you cross the Khumbu icefall. And the Karl and his son Klaus developed the first telescopic poles, the first system to make it compact, 3-section, to make it small. And the pole maybe you have seen somewhere on your travels is a black and golden Makalu. It was actually produced in Kirchheim until the early 90s, and this product is the signature product we had in the summer in the trekking. And this is the pole that Peter Habeler and Reinhold Messner used. Basically, the dimension of the trekking pole was in the late 70s, and then it built up from there, becoming a summer and winter brand, being fully balanced out. And while everybody ran to China for production in the late 80s, early 90s, the son, Klaus Leonhard, decided to build a factory in Czech Republic. So he wanted to be close to production, and he didn't want to, fly. And he was a product guy. He was an engineer as well. And that's why when you can drive 4 hours from Kirchheim and you're in our own production plant, we have our own machinery, tool building, control everything. That was built in the year 2000, and we operate in the same plant until today. It's still up to date.
Wow.
But it was a mix of love for the product, like real crazy love for, we talk about straps, we talk about baskets, we talk about, poles. I mean, these are crazy product guys, but also we talk about really foresight in terms of being entrepreneurial and investing a multi-million-dollar amount into a factory in Czech Republic in the late 90s, early 2000s. That was a very keen move when everybody else went to China. So I think we are still resting on this foundation until today.
Well, I thank you for the history. I'm so great to hear that, grew up from there. I am a historian of mountaineering. I have read Messner's, solo, without oxygen to the top, his and Habler's. I did not know. That's incredible. I mean, I don't think there is any better person to test your pole on a mountain than Reinhold Messner. Incredible.
Yeah. I went to Peter Habeler 2 years ago because of the LEKI history. He was 85 back then, still living in Meyerhofen, and I asked him, like, Peter, how come with this pole thing? Like how did it? I mean, did you use it before? Was it a LEKI invention? And he said, no. Look at Hermann Buhl when he came down from Nanga Parbat. You can Google it. Hermann Buhl, Nanga Parbat, has a picture of him coming down with bamboo poles when he did this legendary endeavor of Nanga Parbat. And Peter said, even before he met Reinhold, both of them used wooden poles, skiing poles for going downhill, for climbing. Basically, that was the late 40s, early 50s. So the mountaineers were always kind of aware about the use of poles. And while the regular hikers were laughing about them, like, are you skiing in summer? And yeah, that's the regular joke you hear. But he said it was already ingrained into the mountain culture. And that's why he said, like, I still can do a ski touring each day. My knee and my back is still strong because in my 20s, I used the poles early on. So it's not on us. It's on these guys who in the 30s, 40s, and 50s all did their thing and came to the same conclusion that you need something to be, four-wheel drive when in the mountains.
I wonder how many of today's new arrivals, and I do not say this with any disrespect, but the new arrivals into trail running would even know who Messner and Habler is, because, so I'm just going to tell you something. I've been trail running for 35 years. I've never used poles. It's just me. And at first, I was one of the guys. I'm not using poles, like you said.
Yeah.
I don't need poles. But as I realize and I see some of the greats using it, makes me, I lived in Singapore. I still live in kind of Singapore. It's flat. I don't need poles, right?
Yeah.
But in a funny kind of way, knowing that Messner used your poles, I'd go out and buy a pole right now.
Yeah. Well, it's fair. I mean, Hayden Hawks won CCC 2 times now without poles. I mean, luckily it's for us, it's the exception from the rule, but it's absolutely fair. If you are not used to it, if you are a better runner without, I mean, what should I say? I mean, it's totally fine. They're different runners, different types of runners, and that's the way it is, and it always will be. So not everything suits everybody.
I think I'm just a very slow learner, and I live in a flat country. Yeah. So I think that would be part of it. How? So maybe just so me and Marcus come from business backgrounds. When was, and obviously we're looking at the ultra running side. When did the light go on? Like, did you guys, no pun intended, did you run towards ultra running, or did it run towards you? How did that marriage start?
I have the firm belief that in our industry, sporting goods, outdoor ski, I would say 99% of times, the topic comes to us. We are not inventing the sport. We are just jumping on a train that's already moving. Maybe different for Nike, but when we talk about our size, it's not really. So the train was moving already in the late 2000s. And if you go back to the 2009, 2010, if you look at the UTMB pictures, everybody had these antennas, these ant-like antennas. They were using telescopic poles in their backpack, and everybody has these antennas coming out here. So that was in the late 2000s, and our French distributor partner was always aware about what's going on at UTMB, and they started to sell Nordic walking poles. This is a very fringe German thing that we go fitness walking. Yeah, it's happening every day when I look out of my window. We do this, very German. We take poles and go fitness walking, call it Nordic walking. And we have collapsible poles like a Messner pole. It's telescopic. It's from aluminium, sometimes carbon. You can adjust it, and you have a grip. This is coming from cross-country Nordic sports, so dynamic, like a Nordic strap, and this was used in the late 2000s, and then I think in 2012-ish, around that time, our distributor, our French partners came around to Kirchheim, to the Germans who had no idea about what trail running is, and said, like, can we do this Nordic walking pole in red and yellow, like in alpine racing, like it's like World Cup, Hermann Maier, Lindsey Vonn, give me the Nordic walking pole in red and yellow. And we were like, that sounds weird. Why? And we did not really understand that. We sold it quite decently, and you can see in the for early 2010s, you can see some runners with red and yellow, call it Traveler actually, because it's a collapsible Nordic walking pole. People running with this. That's how it started. But it was happening, and we were actually late to the party.
Right. Okay. I'm very curious on that relationship between a new thing happening and then a fairly established company, in this case in Germany, being confronted with this new movement. Like, what was going on inside LEKI? Like, who were the forces behind and saying, hey, we should do this, shouldn't do it? Help us understand that dynamic, because I'm very curious about how companies reinvent themselves.
I think that's a very, very interesting question. I'm pondering about this every now and then as an established company. A very good point. History matters. LEKI is built around people coming from alpine racing. There are some Nordic guys, very few coming from the outdoors, but that's the background. We are not Hoka. And to get somebody excited for trail running who is coming from alpine racing is rather challenging. So it really started with the French team getting behind the topic. And luckily, we have one engineer who is an ultra runner by himself, done Zugspitz, Transalpine Run, some others. So there was kind of, there was some seeding already in the company, I would say. But what we did basically was start doing a company inside the company, having a small group of people who are into it, 2 or 3 in the beginning, a lot more. And then the big change came when we pulled the athletes to Kirchheim. And we said, we cannot make the decisions from the desktop. We cannot plan from Excel. We need to bring in all these great names, and they need to make the decisions. They need to give us their input. They need to talk to us. We need to invite them. We need to go to them. We need to, when we at UTMB week, we meet athletes all the time, and we're in full dialogue all the time. And I think it's this small combination of a few excited people and a vast group of elite runners where we humbly listen to. If François Den is telling us about his preference for the grips, you better listen. There were so many great names helping us out in the early years, and now it's such a big roster. I think that's the combination I need to highlight when looking back.
I'm going to ask a basic question. So I used to ski. Actually, I dreamt as a kid. I was a reserve on the Scottish mogul freestyle team as a kid. And, I'm 57. So 40 years ago, no one cared about mogul skiing, right? I was at the fringes of a fringe sport at a time when no one cared anyway. I used ski poles or whatever, and I never thought anything about them. I was looking at your website. You do ski poles, you do fitness walking poles. I don't mean this disrespectfully. What's the difference between one pole and the other? When you think about a pole, I'm sure you guys see so many differences, but to the layman, to the public, isn't a pole a pole?
Yeah, that's so great. Like LEKIs will always be under the radar. That's why I love small brands, because on surface level, it's really hard to understand our business. It's not like a sneaker where you look at it. Everybody has a preference about a sneaker. Like, look, this is nice. This is pretty. That's not what we do. So I appreciate that. With that said, I mean, give you a rough example. A mountaineering pole, which is rock solid, made for Everest, is weighing around 300 grams. You can replace all the sections at the spot. You can mount a big powder basket. It's made for heavy duty and maximum reliability. You need to count on this one. The lightest traveling pole is 120 grams, which is less than half. It's like a Formula One car. If you hit the barriers, it can break. It's not made for Everest at all. I think that's like the biggest stretch we have between the Formula One car and like the really solid Jeep, the SUV, the heavy duty car. Just to give you one example, I could go on for hours, but I spare you this.
It's such a nice thing. But Michael, that's a beautiful example, because you're right. If I'm going up Everest, man, I mean, I want a pole that doesn't break. Like I do not want to be coming down Everest without poles.
Yeah. And we are really in a niche. I mean, that's maybe for you as an entrepreneur and from the business side. The interesting part when you look at the southwestern German companies in Baden-Württemberg, there are a lot of technical innovators, hidden champions, niche players carved out their small chunk of the world market, which can be tiny when being at a top level and looking down, but there are literally thousands of them. And LEKI is one of them. Like, we also have discovered our small niche market, and we're so highly specialized in what we do. And trail running as an example, I think the market is so small on a global scale that we said either we run the show or we don't do it. If you divide the market with 5 brands, it's not really interesting. Like, it's really too small. So we need to be really good at what we do. So we can say, like, we occupy this market. I say this with all humbleness. I mean, being small is nothing bad. I think for us, it's about focus. And that's what we are good at. We're not good at, competing with doing what everybody else does. And I think that's like a general thing that applies for so many companies in this southwestern part of Germany. And that's our thing.
That's true. What's now, like, how important is trail running within LEKI in terms of revenue, if you can say it, R&D, marketing budgets, like attention of the board? Like, give us an idea compared to other sports, other pole categories within LEKI. How important is trail running?
We're very seclusive about numbers. Very Schwabian at this point. But it did become a revenue relevant, I would say. It started off as a marketing, PR, a passion project. But in 2024, we definitely have arrived at a level that it's generating relevant revenue. It's contributing significantly to our success. And the biggest upside from my perspective is that it's pulling LEKI in the summer realm into the performance sphere of things. So we are not this fitness walking, hike-ish brand anymore. we embrace our performance DNA coming from cross-country racing, from alpine ski racing, and now we are fully fleshed out in the summer world. And I think that's such a nice closing of the circle for us. So that's the two main things I would see as the driving forces behind it. And now it's the topic of trail running is seen by, I would say, anybody at LEKI, inside the LEKI family, as a driving force for the brand in the future.
So I have absolute respect to be keep the numbers to yourself, but there is one number which is obviously public, which is the cost of an expensive trail running pole. I found one for $219. I'm an old school runner. Nothing against you charging $219, but maybe just a general statement. I mean, man, running used to be get a cheap pair of sneakers, throw them on, and get out the door. You put on poles, hokers, a backpack, some flasks, some wonderful LEKI gels. I mean, you could be putting $1,000 on your back. I mean, are people happy to pay the $200 for poles?
Short answer, some yes, some not. I mean, especially in Asia, where you are located, we can see a lot of poles made from Asia floating around for much less of a price tag. With that said, we want to deliver value. It's not the image you buy. For example, I'll give you one example. In these $219 poles is a patented technology that allows you to disassemble the pole in a few minutes. If you have strong fingers, you can even do it without a tool. Otherwise, you just need a very basic wrench. It's really absolutely simple. You open the sections, they fall off. If you have a breakage, you can replace any section if you're used to it in 1 or 2 minutes. Nothing you do in a race probably, but if you break something in training, you can replace it. And that's patented. There is no pole out there which can have a second life, which can be brought back. Yeah, and you can bring back your pole 2 or 3 times. It really needs a lot of hardware and tear to break the grip or wear it down. It takes probably, even for the professional athletes, years. But the shaft is replaceable. And that's something that is patented, and especially also the patenting is costing money and maintaining it. Well, these are the small details. I can go on, but I just wanted to give you one example.
No, I mean, nothing against, and to be clear, nothing against the price of that. I mean, actually sitting here, I invested in a bag company. When I invested, just like a bag, it's $250. And why? I asked, they're like, oh, this fabric, you know, see, if we're not a video podcast anymore, but this bag is 8 years old and there's nothing wrong with it because this is a unique, super hard wearing fabric that never wears out. But you're right. These bags are not for anybody because these bags, Marcus, I think I told you, these bags were made in Vietnam, right? You could buy a bag in the market in Vietnam for $10, right? So definitely understood. It's nothing against the pricing for it, but you're right. It's a certain segment. But then again, trail runners in general, pretty high earners, aren't they? I mean, this market is not a low income market, the trail running market.
No, like we know the figures from UTMB that's very impressive. And the point is, if you train for a year, I mean, how many running shoes do you need? I mean, not more than 5, more than 6, sometimes 8. Each is between $150 and $200. And if you are an average runner, then a pole lasts minimum 2 years, maybe longer. So, and if you compare it to that, then it's, I would say, rather fair or medium price. That is, especially when you look how much effort or how much gain you have by using poles. So it's not really a discussion we face with customers. It's not really a thing. It's really about providing value and also being responsible for your product, like servicing it, maintaining it, and having somebody in Hong Kong, having somebody in Colorado, like maintaining your product or providing you some kind of guidance how to repair it or how to solve your problems.
Right. You already mentioned 2 keywords I wanted to touch on again. It's performance runners and Asia. So where do you see now the biggest growth for LEKI? In which segment, whether it's customer segment, performance versus amateur, or geography, Asia versus North America versus Europe, India, Africa, throwing some out here. But like, where do you right now try to push things, and where do you again follow the communities? Because I'm sure you're very community focused as well. Interesting question. Yeah, great question. The biggest segment which is growing is longer poles. Longer poles. because the technique is evolving. People get
become better at using poles. And we are sold out in 25s, 130s, and 135 since like 3 months. So we see that the old size run we have is breaking because regular runners upsize, and we saw this 2 or 3 years happening with the professional athletes. That they were ordering each year like 5 centimeters more. And I recall somebody like Petter Engdahl, for example, the pole ninja. Like, he's coming from Nordic. He knows very much how to handle a pole, and he was always advocating for super long length because of the leverage. Or I recall Luis Alberto doing his FKT at the Trail NATO, and he was using a 140 or 145 cross-country pole, not foldable, because he just was running up. He didn't need to store it. And I asked, why are you using a cross-country pole? And he said, because you don't have 145s. And I can push so hard uphill when I have 10 centimeters more than what you offer in a collapsible pole. So that's interesting. That's breaking our supply chain a little bit, because our size runs are always retrospective. That's trend number one. Otherwise, I think the North American market is something that we have gained tremendous momentum. It's the biggest developed ultra running market, but they're coming late to the show in terms of poles. Most runners come from track and field. Sorry, I don't want to generalize this that much, but in France, like, everybody's doing skimo and cross country. It's a different environment. And I think the Jim Barnsley story is, in a nutshell, basically a perfect encapsulation of what is happening in the US. And they embrace more and more the LEKI poles. Basically, all the top runners mostly are on LEKI. That's happening. And at the same time, I would say Southeast Asia is specifically the most dynamic environment for us right now. We have a great partner down there who is really understanding the market. And it started, I think, in Thailand for us to gain momentum. Now it's Vietnam, Hong Kong for sure. Also China is picking up. Yeah, but with that said, we are still growing in our home markets in Central Europe, where I would have expected that to be flat out at some point, but it's still, maybe it's because there were so many French guys winning on the top 10 winning UTMB, but we still have momentum in France, and it was the earliest market, the most mature market, and there's still momentum in there. So yeah, we look at certain markets, but there is some growth everywhere still in the running, ultra running scene. I assume that there are still more runners coming to the show in almost all markets. So the target group is expanding, sometimes slower, sometimes more, but I would assume in almost all markets.
Wow. So it's really interesting how when I hear you saying people are upgrading to longer poles, which means there's also the amateurs which are learning the game and are getting better and getting faster, who have been doing it for many years now and want longer poles. Then, of course, it begs the question, is there a new sport out there that you see coming around the corner like trail running did for you 10, 12 years ago?
Short answer, no. Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, trail running and ultra running was around there a long time already when we were embracing it. I mean, we were fully providing the first product in 2016-17. That was the first folding poles. And I mean, that was, UTMB started in 2001, I think. So I mean, how often did Kilian win UTMB already before we came out with the first edition of our product? So I really think that we, as these middle-sized small brands in this environment, we don't make the sport. We follow the sport, and I see no pole sport coming around at the scale of trail running currently. Unfortunately, I mean, please tell me. Anybody should call me if they see something, because these are rare opportunities, and you need to be first if you want to be the brand to gear up the people for it.
I heard that wingsuit flying also needs poles soon. So I'm kidding. I feel like this whole extreme sport of wingsuit flying is getting really big now. Now, I want to pick up something you said earlier. You mentioned two brands, which is Nike and Hoka earlier, in a kind of a side comment. And I thought, interesting, because you're also the marketing guy of LEKI. What is your take on the different marketing strategies out there? I mean, Nike, I would argue right now on the trail side, hasn't done that much. Hoka, of course, has done the opposite, is going all in trail running. What is your marketing strategy for LEKI, and how do you really connect with your consumer groups? I mean, I think there's a lot of things going on right now, a lot of money getting poured into the market. How do you do it, and how do you do it different than others?
It's very hard to compare us to these big footwear companies. They are all competing for the same consumer out there. And an interesting observation, I think, is that there are brands like Hoka, which fully embrace the ultra running sport. But then there are also very successful running brands out there, which have not that focus or no focus at all on athletes and ultra running, and they are clicking as well. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think you need to find your strategy and your message for the consumer. Obviously, Hoka is resonating very well currently, but there are also other brands not doing the same thing, and they also resonate very well. So like our take is different, but we are really in a different market. We're in a different category. So we fully embrace the athletes. We, I would say, on average, if you take we measure the big 8-9 ultras each year, since we track them since many years now. The Lavaredo, Transcan Canaria, Transvulcania, UTMB on the longer distances, and a few others like Hard Rock, for example. And on average, I would say that 70% of the podiums, or the top fives actually, are with LEKI poles on these races. Since like 3 years, we are on that level. And like, to give you a comparison, it was only 2018 when you have like 8 races, 5 ranks. Take the men's, for example. So it's 40 cells in an Excel. Then I think 3 were on LEKI. And now we are at 70%. But it really happened really, really super fast. And it happened through the athletes. It happened through the pros, through the elites. And that's where we really put our focus. If somebody is sitting in Norway and wants to have a replacement, wants to have a ski touring pole, wants to have maybe a glove for their girlfriend or boyfriend, whoever, that's what we can do. We are globally connected. We can make our elites happy. And we have been very much engaged with the professionals, I would say, at this stage. I mean, we are on a business podcast, so I'm open about that. We are not as dedicated in communication with the community. And that's just a question of scale. I mean, if you are Essex or Nike, you have so many people working for you. It's much easier for you to connect regionally and to have like regional ambassadors to go for a lunch run, an after work run. And that's simply not possible at the scale that LEKI is operating. So for us, it appeared, or to me, it appears just not efficient to go in on the community level because we're too small to do this. It's much more workable for us to focus on 100 global elite athletes and service them as good as we can. I cannot tell you if this strategy is working 2 years from now, because this market has been so dynamic that maybe we need to change overnight and adjust and reinvent ourselves. It works now. I'm very happy about that, but I can't tell you if it's working 2 years from now.
I have a rather silly question just for fun. I was in America recently. I love America. It's amazing. I was in California. I went to one of those horrendous places called shopping malls. It was not my idea. I was with someone. They said, why don't we have a day out at the shopping mall? I mean, truly, I could not have thought of a worse idea. And in a department store, Nordstrom's, so Nordstrom's is one of the big stores, in the fashion section was Hoka's. Hoka's were prime center, I'm not kidding you, next to other fashion shoes. Now, I did not go to the running section to check if Hoka's were there, but they had all of them. And there were tons of people buying Hoka's. And I don't want to discredit these people, but they were not trail runners. They were fashion. So here's my question. Could you make LEKI fashion poles? Could you somehow create everybody needs for fashion to have a LEKI pole?
A good question. We are not in that business. I mean, that's just the thing. The pole is a performance tool in the end. It helps you to climb or to go down or to go to ski, to propel you forward. That's what we are good at. We are not good at generating trends, defining the new shape of our sneaker, defining the new color, the new cut. It's just not ingrained in who we are. What my mind is occupied with. So I would just simply say I would love to sell more poles, but it's not in our DNA.
And I think, I bet you when the Hoka guys started Hoka, I listened to the founder on on Talk Ultra, and Carl Meltzer, when Carl had to take the shoe off the founder to try it out, and Carl was like, I have to try it. And they're like, well, this is the only one I've got. And, they were performance shoes. At some point, you sell your soul to the capitalist devil. Not you guys. You guys seem to have stuck with it. Nothing against Hoka. I mean, obviously, the founders sold Hoka. I think, Marcus, it was like 10, 15 years ago, the founders sold Hoka, and now they're part of a big conglomerate who would rather put their shoes in Nordstrom's than in, it was a bit of a silly question, but you're right. I think there is this trail running is becoming fashion in a funny kind of way. And I think a lot of companies would sell out. Listening to you, and the first time we've met you, Michael, you and your business strikes as, you guys know what you do. You make poles. You're never going to be the billion dollar company. You make the best poles. You go up Everest. You win races. That's what you do.
That's what we do. And when I read in the news that Adidas has a new design office in New York, when I see what is the underlying structure to generate trend, to generate momentum and hit the contemporary zeitgeist, whatever, then it's the result of a structure I set up. And I can really say we don't have the structure. It's not who we are. Like, we are really if you come to our place, if you meet the LEKI people, you will see we are so dedicated about the product and about how making it really good. And of course, we want to make it look nice. That's no question. But it's simply not how we are, not the structure we have. So I leave the fashion to the fashion guys, and we do the performance part.
I'm a material scientist by training, Aachen University, and so a lot of innovation happens, I guess, in your world also on the material side. So how light do you think you can get a pole? Is it possible to go below 80 grams, 100 grams? Like, where is this going in terms of technology and innovation?
That's an exciting question. I mean, getting lighter is really not a problem, but in the end, you will build a crappy product. So the weight is always a balance between what you feel is reliable, what you feel is responsible for the runner or for the ski or whatever you do. So there are poles out there below 100 gram, but we would not do it because we don't think it's a good product. It's not a product we would advise people to run UTMB or any challenging race where you need to have some reliability. So we push the limits. But what are we doing right now? We are using carbon. We are using direct injection molded parts. There's cork, there's foam, there's some high-end textile materials for the straps. So what is the underlying technology we are using? And I would say in terms of carbon, it's pretty maxed out. So to be significantly lighter or significantly stronger, I assume there would be a succeeding technology needed. And that's currently not around. I'll tell you another. Let's have a different angle on that. Sometimes it's just about the performance, being lighter, being stronger. What we did 2 years ago is we built a field of hemp at the Swabian Alp. So the police comes every now and then and makes their measurements if we are doing okay. And we use these hemp fibers to manufacture shafts because hemp is extremely durable, extremely strong. Use the bio-based resin, and the hemp fibers. It looks wonderful. It looks like like hay. It's like really beautiful shaft, and of course it's really heavy, and of course it's not as durable, but it's so much, the carbon footprint is so much lower if we can get this executed. And there are people like Kilian or Francois out there who really care about, like, not just the performance, but is it sustainable? Like, what does it do for the sport? And I think from this angle, there is still a lot of, there's things to capture. There's research to be done, but we also need to accept that at some point, a certain technology like carbon or direct injection molding is kind of maxed out. So sometimes it's smarter to look somewhere else where nobody else is looking, and maybe we can come up with a running pole that's more sustainable. Maybe not as light. Maybe there are downsides. Could very well be. Maybe it will not be a running pole. Maybe it will be a hiking pole in the end. We don't know, but generally speaking, I think for innovation, sometimes you need to leave the playing field and play somewhere else. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
take on it.
My bachelor thesis I actually wrote about carbon fiber in the
Hmm.
aerospace industry. So I was
Yeah.
working at Airbus for a year, and we were doing. I mean, the A350 plane came out at the time, 2012 and something like that. And so they have 78% of that plane is made from carbon fiber. So my research was about the mini micro cracks of carbon fiber in this case of the wings, because carbon fiber is very durable. Also, is can crack, has mini cracks inside,
Hmm.
right? And so that's a massive risk of carbon fiber. So I can imagine a tracking pole, you have to super well design the whole carbon. Otherwise, the mini cracks, which you don't see, could add up to a massive crack at some point, and then you have a big disaster in the mountains.
That would be an interesting bachelor or master thesis to research the mini cracks in a trail running pole that's used during a season by a pro.
Yeah.
Honestly, that could be something we've never really explored. This. Can you measure the wear and tear on the section? I think it would be very easy to objectively look at it. That's something like every now and then we work with a university, and these are exactly the questions. Our engineers don't have the time for it. I don't have the time for it, but it's a wonderful, interesting question for a student, young person engaged in trail running. So I take this with me. That's a very, very nice advice. I would be interested to learn.
Do that.
Mhm.
I think, well, if any young person is listening, call Mike and knows carbon fiber. But
Yeah.
just on a point Marcus made, wouldn't it be great? Because I'm going to say, so your lightest pole's 120 grams. You said the hemp's much heavier. I don't know, 500 grams. Would an extra 300 grams stop Killian from winning? I'm going to say no. Wouldn't it be great if Killian went out? Because clearly he cares. He doesn't travel to races. He cares. Wouldn't it be great to set an example? If Killian went out with a slightly heavier pole and still crushed it, that would be so cool.
Yeah, I will let you know when we get there. I think we are not quite ready, but it's definitely something we want to push to the finish line in the next 1 or 2 years. But I fully agree. I think somebody on that level could very well set a statement and be an example for others. But that's what do you describe is very much like a cultural question, like will we ever as a society trade performance or price against doing the right thing? And all research we have done and I've read in my life is always like people pay 20 to 25% more maximum for a sustainable product. And if you are 50% or 100% more expensive, or if you are like 30% less in performance, then you fall over a cliff. And I don't have the answer to this question. And I hope that the habit will change over the next years and that there is more flexibility, more embracing of these technologies and not just only the focus on performance.
I don't want to be, as we say, Debbie Downer, but I come from finance. Absolutely nobody invests in ESG environmental stocks unless they make more. I mean, seriously, it's like, oh, we're going to do ESG. And you're like, yeah, the returns are slightly less. And they're like, yep, okay, we're not doing that. So there has been unequivocal, if there's even the slither of downside in investment returns, people are like, yeah, someone else can buy that stock. I'm buying me some pollutant stock that's making money. So I don't want to trash on humans. Humans are awesome. But you're right. I think the bar, people, the world's going to implode in 10 million years. Not my problem, right? It is a hard bridge to climb over for a lot of people. But you're right. Some people are principled, and it does take a Francois, a Killian, a Courtney, a Zach to make that. I mean, Zach would be the perfect person. I don't know if he's a LEKI athlete, but Zach would be the perfect person.
He is.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm a massive Zach fanboy. He's the guy, because he lived up in the mountain, right? He lived up at Bar Camp. Like, everything about him screams, I'm going to do it the right way. Can you imagine Zach winning on a hemp pole at UTMB or something like that? That would just be fantastic.
That would be so cool. I mean, if we can combine a sustainable solution with the benefit of a repair and a second life for product, I think that's the way forward, that it's not just sustainable and less and more expensive, but it's really meaningful and adding value to what you do. And that's like the FX feature, the repairable pole, for example. So that's something we can look into. And also, I think something that could be relevant in the future is that being sustainable in your decisions is something that some people want to show off with. So it's also about social status. So you don't want to hide it. You don't do it only for your own. I don't want to judge you on that. I just observe and see like these are two things. You can like you pair something where you have a benefit and social status matters. So maybe that's something we can integrate in our commercial strategy at some point.
I could go on and on about materials. Just one little hint is looking into something like mycelium in the mushroom-based world. I do think there's a lot of innovation coming there for materials. So maybe for another podcast to look into mycelium, but that's something I'm looking into personally for some other reasons. But anyway, last question on my side. Last question is, what's in store for next year? I mean, if there's any kind of hint of new products, any kind of new release coming, what can you tell us about next season, next year? What do you have, Guy? What do you guys have in store?
So watch out for UTMB. That's normally the period where the athletes have the prototypes for the year after. So at UTMB, we always sneak in the prototypes for 2026 when you look at next year. So what we have done across the board with great success, and it proves if a product is working or not. What we've introduced is actually, us from the Shark system, you can click in our strap, which is the maximum power transmission and control. And what we have done together with Francois then was the development of an open strap pole, which is super minimalistic. And that will come in 25 in a not red, not pink color. That's a pretty big step for us in a sand neutral color. And what Francois basically did before winning UTMB 21, he went to a ski shop in Arèche-Beaufort. He grinded down the LEKI grip to nothing, bare bones. He drilled a hole in it, cut some part of his backpack and made it the strap. So it was basically a LEKI shaft with almost no grip and a backpack piece as a strap. I was not happy when I saw it. I was like, that's not the LEKI pole. And people will realize. And then we had a chat and I realized we need to make lemonade from lemons and take his direction and make a real product out of it. And we called the grip the Spartan, because it's very Spartanic in its nature. And this is the 120-gram pole. What's the result? And if you watch out on Instagram, watch out for Kilian, watch out for some others. There's they appreciate that there is also a non-click-in technology by LEKI around, a very, very versatile product for, if you cross the Alps or if you cross the Pyrenees in 7 days, or if you do a very technical race, if it's super hot in Southeast Asia, for example, if you don't want to have the glove. And that's the pole you want to have. And that's just a very nice addition to our heritage origin technology. The click-in system, the Shark system is now we have the Freebird.
Nice. Well, I love the Francois story. That's great. What a nice way to finish this great episode. Thank you, Michael. Danke, Michael. Danke, Michael. Great having you on the show. I think I'm excited to see what's going to happen, of course, next year. And we'll get you back, of course, and talk about innovations with the athletes. So good luck with everything. We're going to definitely follow you closely in Asia. I mean, that's also where our audience is mostly based. So I hope they appreciate your insights. So thank you from us.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Ned. It was a pleasure to be on the show, and I definitely will look into mushrooms after this show. Thank you for the hint.
Just saying, mushrooms and a bachelor thesis. You should look into this for sure.
Great.
The last part of this episode each time is getting Ned's poetry out. So Ned prepares a little trail ultra running poem. So I'm handing it over to Ned to close off this wonderful episode.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You might hear it. I am in Bali. Massive storm outside. Like, part of my brain wants to just go out and run all night in the storm because that's the best time to go out. But before I do my poetry, surely at some time there has to be a LEKI poll. Surely the combination of a LEKI poll is something that my brain just can't get away from. I was thinking about it the whole show. Then I thought we'd call it a LEKA poll. I'm like, that's just LEKI. Anyway, let's park that. I wrote I don't know if Tara Downer if she used polls. I'm going to assume she did. Is she a LEKI athlete? No,
she received her polls from us, if I'm correct. She's not a contracted athlete, but she was doing her breathtaking endeavor with a LEKI poll, very luckily.
Well, I normally write poetry not about athletes. I write it just about, I don't even know what I write it about, running, life. Anyway, I was so like a lot of us. To me, I race, but I'm not a racer. I love adventure, people doing hard things. And so I wrote this about Tara because it was epic. Whoop, so Daisy, still there, guys? Yeah. Okay, this one's called Tara. Tara. I don't know her. but I think I would like to. She went out and did a thing. Not just a thing, the AT. Better than anyone. And I mean anyone. From what I read, she's a killer, but a cool killer. She gritted it out to the nth degree. I have done 10 miles on the AT. And I'm already slow because I'm old, but boy, was that slow. She did 55 miles a day. She was out all day, every day. And you know what she says now? She feels empty. She wants to be back out there as a savage on the trail, because I think she gave more than we know. She turned into a trail animal. Now, restless at home, she says she is lost. I hear it. She went above and beyond. Normality sucks after that. Thank you, Tara, for transcending. It inspired us all a ton. I wish you were back out there forever. Never stop. No one will catch you. We'll see you out there, Ned.
Thanks, Ned. Indeed, a very impressive feat of her. It's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I ran 10 miles on the AT one time when I was in Vermont, and straight up. So Marcus knows I'm a little bit just unorganized. My watch is set to kilometers because I'm, British. I was going so slowly, I thought my watch had automatically figured out it was America, and it was saying miles per minute or miles per K. I couldn't believe I had stopped, gone down to like 9.5 minutes per K. The AT is so slow. It's so technical. It's mind blowing. The fact she cracked out 55 miles a day on that.
Well, Ned, all I can say, you should have used some LEKI poles to be faster. That's the whole solution to it. I mean,
well,
seriously.
If I'd had LEKI poles and LEKI gels,
I mean, oh my God. Impressive. Great. Thank you so much. Everyone out there, thanks for listening. Subscribe, reach out. You can find Michael in the show notes as well. He is on LinkedIn. LEKI is also on Instagram, has his own Instagram account. Give them feedback, get the industry going, work with us to make this a better place. Run more, be happy, be peaceful, and lots of trail love from all of us. Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody. Lots of love.
Thank
Bye.
you.